What's going on, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Profit Picks. If you're new, we do this show every Friday, and we also pick another day during the week, lately at least, Tuesday or Wednesday, to get involved. And we always do our best to be transparent. It's not an everyday show, so we can't say every single day, but I've won 3 out of 4 days so far this week. So I'll do my best to try to keep that going. Yesterday was one of those winning days. How you doing, Rob? How's the week treating you?
Yeah, I'm doing good here, Ski. Last night, bitten by the Cleveland Cavaliers, I guess is my newest team to dislike, had over 114 and a half team total. They had 74 at halftime against the Houston Rockets without three starters. And of course, they only put up 39 second half points and fall short, which was kind of unbelievable. I had to look at the box score 2-3 times. But to save the day at the end, to get me that one winner for the night where the Spurs and the Clippers. Spurs did what we thought they would do and gave up over 130, got the game up and over the total. That worked out. College basketball has been treating me a lot better than NBA as of late. College hoop 21-11 to start the year as we start to focus in a little bit more on that. But here today, I'm going to talk these NBA games and get these NFL conference championship games, because if there's one thing, Ski, that's excelled, it's the football plays and the big ones, the 4% and the 5%, pick up 81 units of profit over the last, I think, 13 weeks of NFL. So it's been good. We got a couple up here. Excited to talk them out with you.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. But before we get to the slate, we only have 5 NBA games and a pair of NFL games. Let me ask you, which are you like focusing in on a certain conference or a certain team in college basketball? Like for myself, I pay attention mostly to Houston Cougars or UCLA or UNLV, or just, it was the Pac-12 and the Mountain West for me. Is that how you approach? You pick certain conferences or teams?
I go for the whole entire thing, Ski. Normally, when I'm really focused, I'll have the extra board as well, the smaller conferences. But right now, it's really the main board that I'm focused on, the main conferences. And as we get closer to these conference championship times, you want to understand what all of these teams are about. So it's been a little slower process this year, and I think it's done me good. I don't know about, then I do know that in your case, the volume is lower with college hoops because you do narrow in so much. And for myself, I think lowering the volume through November and December was a good thing to get me to the point where I am now. And now we can start focusing a little more. But I do try and get to everything. You know me, I'm looking at these totals each and every day. And we're the line maker because there's so many teams. It's impossible to have them all right throughout an entire season. So you're looking for those, handful of gems that you can just keep pounding each and every night and taking home the cash.
Absolutely. And I'm going to dive into college a little heavier as soon as NFL dies down, which after this weekend, we'll have a couple of weeks break.
Yeah.
So it's coming up right now. If you guys are watching on Twitter, we are live on YouTube as well. And that is where I can see the comments. So if you have any questions, anything you want us to get to, or just any comments or any plays you want to share, that's where you can share. That's where you can share them. And I'll put them up here on the screen as best as I can. So let's get into it, Rob. We got 5 NBA games. The first one on the slate is Milwaukee and Indiana. This game opened Bucks minus 7.5. It's all the way up to 8.5. Total opened 237.5. And this one has worked its way. It's between 239 and 240 at WinBet. As far as the injury report is concerned, I did see, and let me just hit the refresh button here. So Giannis is game time, but he's likely to play. Portis obviously has been out. Ibaka's been out. It looks like everybody else. Middleton back in the lineup. Everybody else is expected to play. For the Pacers, looks like Nembhard is game time. Nesmith is game time. And Miles Turner, also game time decision here. Tyrese Halliburton still going to be out, and Tice also still out. So I know you had a play. I didn't hear your breakdown on Wager Talk today. When I signed in to hop on the screen, I saw you breaking it down without my volume. So I'll kick it to you first, Rob. How do you feel about Milwaukee and Indiana?
Yeah, this one was one of those kind of just wake up and play it ski. We've talked a lot lately about Indiana being a miserable first quarter team, right? And that extended the other night. They lost to Orlando by like 17 points in the first quarter in their most recent game, 46-29. When I was on Wager Talk today earlier, Teddy pointed out he's great with finding those coaches' quotes that Rick Carlisle was a little disgusted with the way they started the game. And he had asked me, are you worried about that? And generally, Ski, I would be, right? You always feel like the players will respond next time out to the coach's criticism. However, when you're 14-35 against the spread in the first quarter, I don't know. Those coaches' words probably fall on deaf ears. And it's got a lot to do with the fact that Halliburton's not there lately. I mean, it's a season-long problem. Let's face it, 14-35 is a season-long problem. But since Halliburton's gone down, he's been out of the lineup 8 games, and they're still 1-7 against the spread first quarter. That in itself is probably enough to make you at least look at the other side and fade Indiana in the first quarter. But when I saw that Milwaukee's the best road first quarter team in the league, 15-8-1, almost 67% covers here in the first quarter out of the Bucks, and they're 6-1 first quarter this month. And I thought to myself, that's just one of those where you walk into the window, you play. You get open up all your sites and go ahead and go to work on that. So we'll see. I mean, it could prove to be wrong, but the numbers are so strong that I don't know how you play against them at this point in time. Like I say, the subtraction of Halliburton hasn't helped. And with the injuries that you just listed off, when I saw those, maybe no Nembhard, maybe no Miles Turner, that doesn't help either. TJ McConnell actually has stepped in and played pretty good point guard for them in fill-in, but I don't know. I just don't see them. I see the Bucks as being a team that's starting to put things together a little bit. Totals going up because Giannis is in. All those three-point shooters are getting some time now on the floor, Ski, right? In the beginning, it was no Connaughton, no Joe Ingles, none of those guys, but now they're all in there. And I will say this, if there's one concern, guys, Indiana's 1-7 without Halliburton first quarter ATS. That one win came against Milwaukee. They beat the Bucks in the first quarter. I'm going to count that as an outlier and go ahead and lay 2.5 first quarter with the Bucks.
That does sound like a great play. 2.5 sounds like a fair number. And I know, no Halliburton, that definitely is going to hurt the offense. You mentioned a couple other guys going to hurt the offense if they just happen to miss the game. Nembhard and Miles Turner. And then Miles Turner, if he's out, I mean, Pacers already don't play any defense. They're just going to get even worse. So I lean that first quarter with you. I probably would play this game up and over just because of the pace I know both of these teams play at. But I also like Drew Holiday. I rock with him over his point prop of 19.5. Last 8 games, he's averaging just under 25 points per game. And I get, Giannis has missed some of these games. But if you just look on the season when he's playing versus bottom 10 defenses, he's averaging 22.5. So just with how he's been playing lately, and I look on the other side, I mean, McConnell's been okay. Or he's been good as far as like running the offense, but he's not stopping anybody on defense. And I just have a hard time seeing Drew Holiday not get to 20. So I like his point prop tonight. And I also like your play on the first quarter minus the 2.5. Good job on that game right there. I guess we can keep it going. We will go to Memphis and Minnesota. This game opened Memphis minus 3.5. We're looking at minus 3s pretty much all across the board. Total opened up 237. And we're looking at 238, 239. Let me get to the injury report. And I just had a moment where I remembered I forgot to go back to the comments. They probably want to talk about that last game. But Desmond Bane is game time decision here. Steven Adams is going to be out. Green out. Conchar out. For the Timberwolves, we have Rudy Gobert. Game time decision here with his groin injury. McLaughlin out. Prince out. And Karl Anthony Towns obviously still out. So I have a lot of different opinions on this game, Rob. I want to kick it to you first just because I'll probably talk. I mean, you're usually the long-winded one. I'll probably be the long-winded one on this game. So what do you think about the the Timberwolves' recent success. What if they won 3 of their last 4 games? But I don't think they've played versus that great of competition versus the Grizzlies. They've lost 4 in a row every game on this road trip, right? Do you think they can finish the road trip strong?
Yeah, I'm sure that's on their mind, Ski, because that was a heartbreaker the other night, right? They thought they had that game won. They lose it in closing to Golden State. And it did. It makes them 0-4 ATS on this road trip, or 0-4 straight up. And I don't know if it's ATS. It is 1-3 ATS because they covered Golden State. But when I looked back, these two teams have met twice this year, Ski, right? And I was immediately what I saw was the huge discrepancy in rebounding. It's crazy. Memphis beat this team up by 30 rebounds in a game in November, 59-29. They out-rebounded Minnesota, and Minnesota still won that game. Like Rudy Gobert was in. Karl Anthony Towns, I think, was not in for that one. He was in for the other one. But it wasn't just because of Steven Adams. They had like 7 guys with 5 or more rebounds. Now, a couple of the subtractions you're talking about tonight for Memphis contributed heavily in that rebounding total. John Conchar, believe it or not, has been big on the boards in both games for Memphis, and Dylan Brooks, obviously, or excuse me, Desmond Bane, always big. But I don't know that Memphis can close the gap because, you know, the other game that they played earlier, they still lost the rebounding battle by 13 with everybody in with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert. So there's something about the boards that helps Memphis out here. They won that game by 11 points. I kind of lean their way a little bit based on the 0-4 road trip and the need to get one win out of this thing. And they've had a day off. But it is, you know, the travel's been long for them. And Minnesota on a Friday night, I always talk about home teams on Friday night, how I don't like to play against them. And Minnesota, as you mentioned, playing a little bit better lately. What you do notice out of both of these teams is the under streaks that they're on. Memphis 0-4 under last 4 games. Minnesota 0-3 under last 3 games. And both games that they played this year have been unders. So I think I didn't play it either way, but I think if I had to play, I might look under here. The total seems to be, you know, based on reputation of both when we're looking at 238.5, 239, and they haven't really come close to that number either time, 217 and 210. And like I say, both teams on streaks where they're playing unders, still good defensive teams. Adams makes a difference, his absence, but I don't know if it'll be enough to get it up and over. So if I had to ski, I'd probably play under.
Well, looking at the total here, I mean, we're looking at, you know, just recent performance. Memphis, the last 2 weeks, they played 5 road games. They've gone under 4 out of those 5. And on the road so far this season, they are 15-9 to the under. Minnesota at home, they are 14-12 to the under. The thing that scares me here, as far as that play is concerned, is obviously the pace of play. I mean, last 5 games, they're both top 10. And when you take Steven Adams out, and I think we're going to see Brandon Clark because he played solid. But I think we'll see more Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5, and I just can't help but think, you know, they're going to play even faster than they already do. So I don't like that, but I don't know. I don't want to talk you off. It's just I feel uncomfortable thinking about an under in this one. I want to back the Grizzlies side here, and really is just, you know, just trying to end the road trip strong. They lost the first couple games, right? Our first 3 games, I think, and then Steven Adams went down in that third one, and they had to figure out some kind of adjustments. They played Tillman in that first game, that didn't work. They got blown out by 30. Then they played Clark in that next one, which they were winning, and he was playing solid, and they were up by like 10, I think, in that fourth quarter, before missing free throws and just mistakes they're making on defense. So I feel like they can build off of that performance with Clark in there and just knowing maybe just lessen Tillman's minutes. And Clark is acknowledging what he has to bring. He said he's played with everybody in the rotation. He knows what he has to do, and he's ready for whatever role that they need. And then just Taylor Jenkins kind of saying the same thing, like he's saying that was, you know, the game where they got the best effort out of the 4 games that they played on the road. and he's wanting for them to build on it. You got Tyus Jones. He's coming in and saying, they need to win a game pretty much. He says, it hasn't been a good road trip, but they want to end it on a high note and then go back home to their fans. He says, this is where great teams lock in. And I agree. And are the Grizzlies a good team, a great team? That's up for, you guys to debate. But I know they think they're a good team. Ja just not too long ago was saying, I'm fine with anybody in the West. And I think this team is just going to play with a certain amount of pride. Like, Ja didn't do no interviews last night. They know they're supposed to be winning some of these games. So I think they're going to bring it. And different stats. If you hear me mention these systems before, I'll call them favorite for a reason. I'm not going to get too deep into just naming the entire system here, but favorite for a reason. You got two teams going in opposite directions here. As far as we talked about Minnesota winning 3 of their last 4 games and the Grizzlies losing 4 in a row. Yet the Grizzlies are road favorites here. I just feel like that's pretty telling. And both teams are equally rested. So I'm going to roll with who I think is the better team. And also, if it gets out of hand, Minnesota plays another game tomorrow. And I think that's a game where, they're coming off. Minnesota's coming off of a revenge game. I think that was a game they cared a lot about. This game could get them over 500, so they probably do care about this one too. But it was something with that next game that our guy Jay mentioned to where they should probably care about that next one a lot too. So don't think it's the greatest spot for Minnesota. I think it's a spot for Memphis to right the ship. And that is the way that I will play it. I also want to look towards Desmond Bane over his 3-point prop. It wasn't out this morning, but I'm assuming it's going to be 2.5. And let me just pull this up so I can be entirely correct. He averages 3 3-pointers made per game. And then versus bottom 10 3-point defenses, he's hit 3 plus 10 out of those 12 games. You got a Minnesota team who is the 3rd worst or 4th worst, defending the 3. And they've allowed, the last 4 games, they've allowed somebody to have 4 plus 3s. So I don't see why it can't be Desmond Bane tonight. He does have a game time decision tag attached to him, but as long as he's out there, I think he'll take advantage of that soft 3-point defense. So Desmond Bane over once his prop is announced, and we like the Grizzlies tonight. Any follow-up from you, Rob?
I'll say this. Memphis has a lot of teams that can't wait to play them, right? And if we just go back to the playoff series last year between these two, I think it was a first round. It was a heated battle. It was a 2 versus 7. Minnesota basically welcome to the party, and they played them tough. That series went 6 games, Ski. After game 1, the next 5 all stayed under this number of 238.5. And now 2 this year makes 6 out of 7 between these two that have been under 238.5, 239. So for whatever reason, and again, I haven't played it yet, but the more I look into it, the more I feel like maybe I should be on this under, especially if Memphis has some road legs in the 5th game of a long road trip here. But 6 of 7 under kind of speaks to the personnel on each team. However, I think the injury list has a lot to do with that, because if Rudy Gobert doesn't play, and as you were saying, without Steven Adams, boy, it takes a lot of rim defense out of there. So we'll see. Memphis got the 242 the other night with Golden State, who's a way better shooting team than Minnesota is. But the series seems to just breed under 6 out of 7, way underneath this particular total.
Sean Bane is questionable. I said that prop if he plays.
Mm-hmm.
And Rob, the only thing I'll say about that too is those are playoff games, if I'm not mistaken, right?
They were.
Yeah, so it might not be as much as that intensity for this matchup. And I agree with you. If Rudy Gobert is in, you would like that under a lot more. If he's out, I'm sorry, I'm not going anywhere near it. Let's keep it going here, Rob. I think we're doing a solid job so far. 2 games down, 3 games to go in the NBA. We'll look at Orlando and Miami. This game open Heat minus 7.5, and it's up to minus 8 now. Total open 221.5, and we're looking at 219.5 injury report. And I'm sure there's going to be some people in there for the Heat because it always is. Well, let's start with the Magic because it's the easy one. Isaac out, Okiki out. For the Heat, Highsmith game time decision, but very likely to play. We're looking at Caleb Martin, very likely to play as well. Why did they just put these people on the injury report every day? Max Struess, very likely to play, but game time. People who are going to be out: Jovic, Robinson. No, Jimmy Butler's in, Bam's in, Hero's in. So I played this one pretty much just off of a system route, and the system is pretty much just saying like there's two systems, but they're under systems. The first one is really simple. It's just a regular season home division game when one of them is on an under streak, and it's about a little bit above 57% to the under going back about 6 or 7 years. And the other one, let me pull it up here. I don't have it written on my note sheet. I should. It's pretty much, I don't want to do it like that. Let me kick it to you, Rob, and then I'll come back with my second system here.
All right. So what I'll say real quick here, Ski, is I really want to get to Orlando plus the points here. Love what they're doing as of late. This is a team right now that's 6-1 against the spread in the last 7 games. In that 6-1 is a 4-3 straight up. The offense has come to play. This is a team that's fully healthy now. Bunch of young kids, but fully healthy. And I liken them as I do the power ratings each and every night, upgrade, downgrade, whatever. I kind of liken them to the way OKC is playing this year. You know, two teams that we would have considered to be tankers to start the year, not caring that much about how many wins they rack up. But these two teams seem to care about winning games. And Orlando, for what it's worth, they're only 3 games outside of a play-in game right now. You don't consider Orlando a team that you would turn on the TV at playoff time and see. But the way they're going and with their health right now and with as many bigs as they have, they can cause Bam Adebayo a little bit of problem here. And to me, Bam Adebayo has been the steadying force to this Miami team for about 2 weeks in a row now, maybe a little more. Jimmy plays well when he plays, but he doesn't always play. And the guards have been sporadic shooting the basketball. Normally, Miami would have these 3-point shooters lighting it up on a nightly basis, but that hasn't been the case. So to me, 7.5, 8 points just seems like an awful lot to give an Orlando team that suddenly becomes scrappy. They do care about winning games. It's in state, and it's the first time they've met this season. For whatever reason, you would think Miami and Orlando have played divisional rivals. Maybe they would have played so far this year. They haven't. First time out. Again, I think the Magic kind of in the state of Florida feel like the little brother here, so I expect huge effort out of them. And one more time, I'll say I think the size differential in this game matters. Banchero's been real good as a rookie for them. Franz Wagner has been real good, actually made a huge step up this season as far as scoring goes. And the way that Wendell Carter and now Jonathan Isaac and all these bigs play, there's enough guard play and enough guard depth here for me with Orlando. So I'm going to start treating them, Ski, a lot like the way I treat Oklahoma City. I'm going to expect that their youth and depth and the way they're shooting, by the way, they've shot 50% or better in 3 of their last 4, and from 3-point range, 40% or better in 4 straight. So it's a team that's hot offensively right now. I think I may talk myself into Orlando plus points here.
I wouldn't talk you off. You see the people in the chat saying not to lay the points with the Heat as well. What's up, Jesse? Appreciate you tapping in. Lee Johnson also saying the Magic will compete. Says those young guys are special. We didn't get to OKC yet, Jesse, but we will get there. Chris says Magic playing with pace. Last 5 game stats, I have the Magic 18th in pace, Heat bottom 5. And I know both of these teams are bottom 10 shooting the 3 so far this season. The Magic do one thing good defensively, and that's defend the 3. They're top 5. And the Heat, top 5 defensive rated team in the last 5 games. So those are a couple of things that I was liking as far as the under. And the reason the system is not popping up anymore is because the total has been dropping. And it's just based on the difference in a margin versus, where the total is at. So probably has dropped too much a little bit now, but I did take it at, I think, 221. So that's my play on this game. Rob is looking a little bit more towards the Magic side, and no props, no props for me. I think I'll keep it going to the next game. That will be Cleveland and OKC. And this one I found really interesting here. It opened up Cleveland -1, flip of favorites. We now see OKC -1. Total open 226 and it's down to 222 and a half. Somebody's got to be sitting here. Let's take a look at this Cleveland side. Donovan Mitchell, game time decision here. Kevin Love, game time decision for OKC. Looks like they'll be without Lou Dort, Pokusevski, and Robinson Earl. The thing to me is like I look at this game and it's like, why is OKC open up as the favorite, right? But I get it. I mean, Cleveland still does not have a winning record on the road. They're 9-15 straight up, 10-14 against the spread. The Thunder, as bad as they've been, they have a winning record at home. They're 14-10 straight up, 15-9 against the spread. They've been scrappy all year long, and I just feel like they're playing better basketball right now, or at least I got to roll with the home road splits and just respect how they've been playing versus the Cleveland team playing on a back-to-back. So home team playing better all season long as far as the splits. I think I understand why OKC is the slight favorite today. Do you, Rob, or are you looking the other way?
No, and I think it's fair, Ski, because power ratings wise, I show Oklahoma City at home 1 point better than Cleveland as a road team. And then when you add in back-to-backs and the potential sits by Cleveland here, Mitchell and Love didn't play last night. I've said this before. It's almost like maybe I said it on Jay's show, but it's almost as if teams look at Oklahoma City and that's the game where they decide, yeah, we can sit this one out and we can still get there. But how about this team is 23-25 straight up? Never mind point spread wise. They're almost a 500 team this year. It's time that we start realizing how good they are. If you haven't already, they're 7-3 straight up last 10, and they're 1/2 game out of the 10 spot in the West. And for Oklahoma City, again, I think the reason why there's no tanking going on there, and it's because when you listen to these post-game interviews, no matter who it is, whether it's SGA, whether it's Josh Giddey, it just doesn't matter who it is. They talk about how together they are as a unit, and you see it on the floor. They give you 48 minutes of basketball. They play with pace. They've got a back-to-back team that doesn't necessarily want to play with pace. We've seen Oklahoma City go at these slow teams or teams that don't want to go in the second of back-to-back, such as Boston that night where they put up 150, such as Philadelphia where they put up over 130. I think they'll do the same thing here to Cleveland. Cleveland's known for bigs. These guys don't want to travel up and down the floor at Oklahoma City's pace. So I saw Jesse's comment earlier, wanted to get to OKC, was worried about the absence of Lou Dort. I can only say this. Oklahoma City is a deep team with a lot of guys that are interchangeable. And the fact that Wiggins may start instead of Dort doesn't really make that much of a difference. Lou Dort is special on the defensive end. He can be not so special on the offensive end on given nights. So maybe you get rid of some of that portion. You add shooting percentage with Wiggins, and maybe you lose a little bit of defense, but the other parts are there. And I just don't see Cleveland off of that win against Houston last night coming here and being especially motivated. OKC will be. So I kind of like that play, Skeet. I think people will look at it kind of like how you started. How is OKC even favored? But like I say, it's fair. If you're keeping power ratings here, it shows they should be the favorite. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe take a look at OKC in that game.
Absolutely. I'm with you. And a couple guys in the chat mentioning, Chris Clark says Mobley rebounds or Allen. One of them should go crazy. Won't be able to box both of them out. Young News agreeing, saying Cleveland has better bigs. And I agree. There's no props out yet just because they played yesterday. You never know who's actually going to sit here. But I would be looking at Jared Allen, looking at him since January 1st, he's averaging 13.6 points, 8 rebounds. But versus bottom 10 defenses or bottom 10 rebounding teams, he's averaging 15.9 points, 9.7 rebounds. So if his rebound prop comes out at 8.5, I'm definitely going to play it. If it comes out at 9.5, probably will play it or look at double double. I just got to, the numbers are, but definitely targeting Jared Allen. And that's the only thing I would like from the Cleveland side. If I'm playing the game, like we mentioned, it's going to be the OKC side. So I think we're done with that one, Rob, right? Anything else, or we can keep going?
Yeah, we can keep going. The minutes last night, Ski, were surprising to me out of Cleveland because they had Houston blown out in the first half, and yet Evan Mobley still played over 33. Jared Allen played over 34. You would think, knowing that there's a game the next day, these guys would have been under 30. They weren't. And real quick, just a response to the Cleveland Bigs, where they should get rebounds. There's no question about it. I think that Oklahoma City's pace outweighs that. And I think Oklahoma City, how many times did I come out and say, for God's sake, Mike Muscala is their starting center? They found a way to get around that with Jalen Williams now at center. Kenrich Williams, doesn't matter. They go small, and they go small with a purpose. So I think I'll stick with the OKC side.
All right, love it. My bad. Let's keep it going to the last game on the NBA slate. We will touch a little bit of NFL as well. But Toronto and Golden State, this game opened -5.5 for the Warriors. Looking at -5 pretty much across the board. Total open 237.5, and we're seeing a dip as low as 234.5, but there are some 235s out there. So make sure you line shop depending on which way you want to play it. Injury report, Banton, game time decision for the Raptors, for Golden State. Iguodala, game time decision, and Wiggins, game time decision. I don't have very strong opinions, and Vaughn is letting us know. He said he sees Allen at 10.5, so I'm probably going to look at the double double, or just have to approach it a little bit after the show. But I appreciate you shouting that out. Golden State dominant at home. I know they've been losing a little bit lately, not looking as dominant, but I still respect them at the crib, especially off of they won. They just didn't cover, right? But they haven't been playing well. I know they're going to come with a chip on their shoulder, especially at the house. That's just how I feel. And on the flip side, the Raptors have been pretty terrible on the road, right? They're 7-15 here. I think that's what I have. And they also have a game tomorrow. So if this one is getting out of hand, they could save some of those minutes for the next game. Could also see somebody get ruled out later in the day just to save them for tomorrow. I would only look towards the Warriors team here. Don't think -5 is asking too much. And as far as the total, I do have the Warriors 14-9 to the under at home. Raptors a little bit of the opposite, 13-8 to the over on the road. But I don't know. I just think, the Raptors play a little bit slower pace. And the Warriors, in my mind, the reason they win at home is mostly because of the defense. I know they're a great offensive team, but I lean under. Like Golden State a little bit more. I haven't gotten involved yet, but those are the ways I'm looking. I also like really quick that Golden State is top 10 shooting the three, and the Raptors are third worst defending it, but don't like it enough to play it just yet. Do you, Rob?
Yeah, and I tell you what, Ski, I would almost look the other way, but I shrivel up and don't want to play because I'm afraid of a Golden State offensive outburst. And you keep being afraid of these things because that's the reputation they have and that's the ability that they have. But the other night, again, against Memphis, a team that obviously Klay Thompson, among others, has huge differences with. They couldn't shake that team at all without their big man in the game. No Steven Adams. They couldn't shake him. This team, Toronto, is going to out-rebound them for sure. They're the better team up front. So if second chance points help Toronto out, that would be a cause for concern. We had this game the other day, Ski. You and I were together, NBA Wager Talk, NBA Tip-Off Show. It was Toronto's first road game on this trip at Sacramento. And at that time, just thought I liked the way Toronto was heading into this. And I had said, and I do believe this, I handicapped this way, that the first game of an extended road trip is a game where generally you show a lot of excitement if you're looking to play well. And Toronto had no trouble with Sacramento from start to finish. Absolutely crushed. And it shows me that they are at this point in time, probably looking to secure a playoff spot. I mean, there's a lot of veteran presence on that team. Veteran teams can go one way or the other. They can either fold up shop or they can continue to play. And I'm waiting for that signal from Toronto, and I don't think it's fold up shop at this point in time. So I'd expect a good effort from them tonight. As much as I talk about positives for them, I'm still afraid of Golden State coming out and shooting lights out. You have to be afraid of that every time out. And you hit it on the head, Ski. Their defensive numbers have been way below Toronto standards this year. Whether that's due to injuries in and out, you can make a million excuses, but they're not playing defense the way we think of Toronto playing defense. So aside from having an advantage on the boards, aside from being a team that I think is hot and ready to play here and a team that's focused, I still can't get there plus the points because that matchup, Golden State's 3-point ability against Toronto's 3-point defense, that could cover 5 points really. And it could cover 5 points in the last 2 minutes of a game. Seen that happen before too, where Golden State just muddles along, and then boom, 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 and you don't cover as a dog. So I'm going to let it go. I didn't have a real good opinion on the total either.
Yeah, I'm with you. Only thing Raptors doing good lately these days is rebounding. Team that is third worst shooting the three and defending the three. That's a good way to lose a lot of games and get blown out while doing it. Sorry, Nucky. I know that's our guy from up north. I just tapped in right now, but I appreciate you in the chat, though. I appreciate you tuning in. We'll see if the Raptors can get it done. At the end of the day, neither one of us has placed a bet on Golden State. We're just sharing our opinions. So I think we did a really good job breaking down the NBA card. We still will give our best bets at the end of the show. Maybe it'll be an NBA, maybe it'll be an NFL. But we have a couple of games still to talk about here, Rob. And look, I'm learning now. I'm hopping on YouTube. I'm learning now. We're going to switch it up. We got the championship round.
We got jelly beans or gumballs. What do we got here?
Whatever they got going on. But at least we got the NFL on the screen now. But we'll go to first, we'll go 321, 322. It's the first game that we'll see. It will be San Fran versus Philadelphia. This game opened up Eagles -1.5. We're looking at 2.5 pretty much across the board right now. Total open 45.5, and it's up to 46.5. Maybe I should kick it to you first on this one, but I mean, I'll tell you, we talked about this game one time, and since we talked about it, the first time we talked about it, I didn't have a really strong opinion. I just kind of was leaning towards the Eagles first half and just trying to find ways to bet them. But I'll tell you right now what my short list is here, Rob. I'm looking at Purdy. It's a few things. Wait, I'm missing one right here. One of them, let's go here first. Sanders. We'll go Sanders under his 10.5 receptions. And really the cap on that one was, he's only had one catch the last 6 weeks. And 5 of those 6 games, he stayed under his receiving yards of 10.5. They used that other running back Gainwell a little bit more. So I think it's a good look for him to be under his receiving yards. And then we'll go to Purdy. I see people naming him Glock Purdy in the chat. I want to look at under his 220 passing yards. And really, I just don't think, they're going to ask him to do too much to losing the game, especially against one of the better defenses that they face, all season long. He's hit this under 8 of his last 11 games, and Philly is number 2 against the pass this year and just really good in pressuring. So I think they'll play more of a conservative game plan. They'll probably run the ball a hell of a lot more, and I like him under his 220.5 passing yards. And then we'll go on the flip side, and I'll kick it to you after this. You'll lead us into the sides and totals, I'm sure. I like Hurts to throw an interception plus 102. And my thought process there is, he's been pretty clean, but what defense have they been playing? Now you're going up against a Niners team who's had 2+ takeaways, I think, in 8 of their last 10 games. They're number 2 in either takeaways or interceptions. It's one of those 2 stats. So I just think it'll be a game where, Hurts doesn't have that much experience. I think he'll make a mistake. And if we like the Niners, in my opinion, you like them because of the defense. So that's how I think they'll win this game. And at plus 102, I think it's a decent price. So any opinion on the props that I named there? Sanders under his 10.5 receiving yards, Purdy under 220.5 passing yards, Hurts interception plus 102. And how do you feel about a side or a total in the Eagles and Niners game?
Well, let's roll through the props real quick here. Ski, there's no way I could talk you off of Jalen Hurts' potential to throw an interception against this defense, right? They bring pressure. They can rattle quarterbacks. I don't think that Jalen Hurts is a guy that you rattle for 60 minutes. He makes a mistake and then just loses his mind. But I could totally see him, maybe reading the defense wrong, maybe trying to squeeze something in, something that caused interception. So plus price, it's totally worth a shot. The Miles Sanders prop somewhat scares me only because it would only take one screen pass. Now, they're not throwing the ball to him recently. I get it. He had 3 games in a row late in the season or second half of the season where he went over that number. But lately, they haven't even been throwing him the ball. Kenneth Gainwell, as you mentioned, is the guy they've been really using as the pass receiving guy. It's hard to be that predictable, though, against a San Francisco defense, right? Like you bring Gainwell in and the other side says, oh, now they're going to throw it to the back. Sanders is in, they're not going to throw it to the back. Under pressure, you tend to have dump offs a lot, and maybe Sanders takes one dump off and goes 9 yards. It just scares me a little bit, but certainly the numbers are there to back up a play there. I think from my perspective, listen, all season long, we've talked about Philadelphia first half totals going over, right? And here they are again. It's a first half total of 23. They're 12, 2-1, 13, 2-1 over this particular number on the season. The only 2 times they didn't get over, aside from that, were the 2 games where Jalen Hurts didn't play and the other game where the Giants didn't start any starters. So you throw those out. I don't know that I can get myself there for this game. It certainly could happen. 14-10 is possible. 17-7 is possible, especially with the threat of defensive scores. But I think Philly team total over 23.5 is well worth playing here. I think the Eagles are going to find their way to 24 points. That offense is just too explosive over the course of a game. They find too many ways to score. And again, if you add in the fact that their defense may be able to add to the scoreboard for the offense, either by putting them in great field position or by scoring themselves, I think that's got to be played over 23.5 here. The winner of this game probably gets to 24. That being said, I think Philadelphia is the winner of this game. I trust Jalen Hurts and the Philly offensive line a little bit more than I trust Brock Purdy and the San Francisco offensive line. Last week, Brock Purdy was under a heck of a lot of pressure from the Cowboys, who are a pressure unit, and Philly's the best pressure unit in the league, and they've got the corners to sit out on islands against the wide receivers for San Francisco. So Bradbury and Slay are as good as it gets. I'm probably going to try those 2 ways, Ski. I think Philadelphia team total over 23.5, which is a number that they've exceeded way, way more often than not this year, and Philadelphia minus 2.5. Got to win by a field goal. I think you may not have the more accurate kicker here with Philadelphia, but you've got the kicker from distance in this stadium in these conditions that's better. Robbie Gould, I don't trust him outside of 45 in this particular weather. The other side, Jake Elliott, you trust him outside of 50 in this stadium. He's proven it over and over again. So I think those are the 2 ways I'm going to look. I'm going to look Philadelphia team total over 23.5 full game, and I'm going to look Philly to win this thing by a field goal minus the 2.5.
All right, we have Ragu in the building, agreeing with you. That's a guy that is really good at NFL, really good handicapper in general. He says he likes that team total aspect on Philly by you, Rob. And he said just be careful in his earlier comment. He says Philly is really good at home. People, couple split decisions. Joey is being sarcastic here. Says it looks so easy to take the Eagles, huh? Go ahead and take it. Young News says defense wins championships, and Niners not playing around at all. The Eagles defense is pretty good too. It's not like they're a slouch, but I hear you there. I guess I can't talk you off of the first half over. You talked about how good Philly's been in that aspect all year long. I don't know. I was thinking more of an under for the game though. It's tough for me just because my thought process is both coaches will play this one conservative and likely run the ball more than pass. Running the ball means milking that clock. And if both defenses are really good in general anyway, I don't know how successful they're going to be running the ball. They just probably see who makes the first mistake. So to me, that equals under 46. Um, but I don't know. I'm having a tough time with the side or total in this game. Um, I think you definitely tease San Francisco if you like that side, teasing with whoever's the dog in the other game, and you're probably pretty safe. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, these games, Ski, we're kind of splitting hairs. The four best teams are involved, and I don't think any of us here would be surprised if any results happen on Sunday, right? Nobody's surprised if the Bengals win, the Chiefs win, the Eagles win, the 49ers win, and cover as well. Totals over and under, you could argue back and forth. So teasing the 49ers up, certainly you can't disagree with that. I mean, I'm trying to think of reasons why you wouldn't, and it would have to be extraordinary circumstances, right? I mean, Brock Purdy just falls apart and Philadelphia overwhelms them. I think when you're talking about an under in this game, I think 24, there's a real possibility that 24 could win the game. So if that's the case, then that's an under, right? I mean, I don't think it's going to go 24-23. If it goes 24-21, 24-20, you're under that 46.5. It's a good possibility that more than 24 wins this game. I'm going to speak from my perspective here that Philadelphia's cornerbacks, to me, again, Slay and Bradbury, and their safety tandem is more solid than San Francisco's as far as preventing deep balls. And Brock Purdy doesn't really push it down the field where Jalen Hurts will throw the deep ball. And he's got the speed at wide receiver to do so. There's some potential injury factors with San Francisco, right? We see McCaffrey a little banged up. We see Debo a little banged up. Elijah Mitchell, the other running back, a little bit banged up. I think they're all going to play. But in the long run, Philadelphia's offensive line is special. Philadelphia's wide receiver talent is special. And I think the quarterback's a little bit better. Defenses, to me, equal out here because Philadelphia might set the NFL sack record this week. I mean, that's how good they are at pressuring the quarterback. So even though San Francisco comes in with that perception, I'll just say that outside of last week, when Tony Pollard got hurt in the second quarter and Dak Prescott did what Dak Prescott does in big moments, 3 weeks ago, they gave up 500 yards to the Raiders, did the 49ers defense with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback. Right after that, they gave up 13 first-half points to Arizona with a fourth-team quarterback. And right after that, they made Geno Smith look all world for the first half when Seattle had 17 points already at halftime, moving the football up and down the field on this team in the rain. So I'm going to stick by Eagles and Eagles team total here. Props for me are hard to come by. I searched high and low. George Kittle, you're trying to single out somebody that'll have a big game. I was going to try Devontae Smith. I'll tell you why I didn't, because A.J. Brown, for those who watched last week, it looked like A.J. Brown was upset on the sidelines that he didn't get the ball enough. And I just wonder if they're not going to force feed A.J. Brown the ball to keep him happy early and often. Ski, to your point real quick, I apologize. These thoughts keep hitting my head. But to your point about each team coming out and running, I don't know that they would be successful doing that. I mean, I think you're running into two brick walls. And so to try and loosen that up, you have to throw the ball to try and get people off your backs. Get off of me. Get away from the line of scrimmage, And I think Philly could attack that way and stretch it early. So we'll see. Game planning means everything. Sirianni's been good. So has Kyle Shanahan. I mean, he's got the reputation as an offensive guru. Should be a great game. Give me Philly team total over and Philly minus the 2.5.
All right, good stuff. Great breakdown. Rob is most confident on the side and the team total aspect. I'm most confident right now on the props, and my looks right now haven't locked them in, but I'm pretty sure I'll take all three of these, if not two out of the three at least. Purdy under 220.5 passing yards, Hurts to throw an interception plus 102, and Sanders under 10.5 receiving yards. I think we did a really good job on that game there. Rob, let's keep it going. And no, a couple comments, people debating which defense is actually better. Real quick, what's the weak point of the Eagles defense, the weak point for San Fran defense?
All right, so the weak point for the Philadelphia defense would be their run defense. You want to try and get Christian McCaffrey running early, and Philly's been run on this year. You can do it. And the weak spot for San Francisco is getting hit over the top. They'll give up the long ball vertically. And Jalen Hurts, I saw a number, Ski, or I read a number where Jalen Hurts has, I think it's 24 or maybe 25 completions of over 20 yards this year. He throws really accurate deep. A lot of that is due to the fact that his guys are running free. But those are your weaknesses. San Francisco will give up vertical pass plays, and the Eagles will give up rushing yards. So, if San Francisco can come out and establish that, could slow that game down to your point of being an under. Yeah, Von Avery hits it really good. They're soft in the middle, Ski, and it's why I looked at Kittle props. But I thought George Kittle was priced too high. His receiving yards, maybe a touchdown guy. Maybe when San Francisco gets close to the goal line, you look for Kittle. Maybe, but we'll see. That's a good point, though. The middle of the field is a little bit soft pass wise, and that's where Brock Purdy operates. Right? They try and run those mid-range pass plays.
All right, great stuff. Sorry, excuse me. Let's move over to the next game, Rob. We do have one more game. Should be a good one. It is Kansas City -2 as an opener. We're now looking at Kansas City between -1 and -1.5. And this line has been all over the place. Kansas City was an underdog at one point. Total open, I have 49.5 as the opening number, and we're looking at 48 right now. So it's a lot of different ways I look at this game and that I like this game, Rob. Let me mention the props first, just before I probably forget about them. And I've already probably forgot about one, top of my head. So Kadarius Toney, I like him under his 35.5 receiving yards. He stayed under 5 of his 7 games there. And I was thinking Pacheco over his rushing attempts. I think it was 11.5. And he's hit that 8 of his last 10 games. And just thinking they're going to be a little bit more run heavy with Mahomes, a little bit banged up. We saw in that last game they were able to run when they had to, put Henny in the game, or when Mahomes was banged up, whatever the case may be. So I do like Pacheco, and in the same, same way, I think he's going to have more success than McKinnon. So probably McKinnon under his 27.5 rushing yards would be a way I look. On the other side, I want to mention McPherson just because, he's probably the most consistent kicker outside of Justin Tucker over his 1.5 field goals. But I like Mixon the most. I like his receiving yards. I like his rushing yards too. But let me do one at a time here. So the receiving yards, we have a Kansas City team who is 32nd as far as receiving yards allowed to the running back position, and 31st as far as the longest reception. And this Bengals team still a banged up offensive line. I know they showed up and played good versus Buffalo, but this Chiefs team is going to blitz. And when that blitz comes, I think he dumps it off to Mixon quite a bit. So that's my thought process for his receiving yards and his longest reception. And at the same time, he had a 100-yard rushing yard game last week. The Chiefs are soft against the run. I think, they'll probably try to get him going again in this one. That's why I'm thinking of including his rushing yards too. And just the Bengals trying not to be so, what is the word here? Be so predictable. You got to mix in the run a little bit there with the pass. So I think mixing is a big key for them in this game, and that's probably my favorite prop from the Bengals side. How do you think about Mixon, Kadarius Toney under, McKinnon under, Pacheco over his rushing attempts? How do you think about any of those props? And I'll let you lead us into the actual game.
All right, so Joe Mixon, last week, probably a good example, right? He ran for 105 behind this beat-up offensive line, which is still going to be missing a couple of guys. It was announced today that a couple of them are officially out for this contest. However, you said it pretty well. KC's been soft against the run, and Joe Mixon had 105 rush yards against Buffalo. Not that Buffalo is tremendous against the run, but they're a heck of a lot better than Kansas City is. So I could not argue off Joe Mixon rushing yards. He and Samaje Perine are not a true split in carries. Mixon gets more carries than Perine does. Perine basically in for protection and to catch passes out of the backfield, although he can run it as well. But either one of those backs, I don't even know what Perine's total is here. But I think Joe Mixon, if I'm right, Ski, I don't think Joe Mixon played in the game they played this year. In fact, he didn't. They played earlier this year. Joe Mixon didn't play. Samaje Perine played. So just for context, in that game, Perine carried the ball 21 times and gained 106 yards, 5 a pop. So you want to transfer those numbers over to Joe Mixon now that he's playing? I couldn't argue that. So certainly I like that. The Isaiah Pacheco, it's a prop I'm already involved in. And I talked about it on Wager Talk today, but it became my favorite prop in this game. But I didn't play his rushing attempts. I played his rushing yards. His rushing yards are 47.5 here. Got to lay some juice with it. I think it was $1.35 at DraftKings for clients. Obviously, for my personal, play, I try to shop for a better line, and that's why I would recommend that to anybody. If you can find better than minus 135, please do it, because these prop numbers are all over the board. Where if you have 6 or 7 outlets, you'll find different numbers everywhere. But Pacheco, he's gone over 47.5 9 times in his last 10 games, and he hasn't just gone over 47.5. He's gone 58 or better. So that's 10.5 yards better in 9 of his last 10 games. And he did play against the Bengals earlier this year, and he gained 66 yards on 14 carries. That's almost 20 yards better than what we need to hit here. I think the misnomer about Pacheco, and maybe we started to see it last week, is that because he's so strong and physical that he's a bruising running back, he's in there to pound away, center of the line, 3-4 yards a pop. Guy runs a 4.3 40. And we saw that last week when he broke outside and went 31 yards on one run. If he gets 31 yards on one run here, he's totally going over the number. So I think that's a really good bet. And I'll say this, when he got 66 yards earlier this year on just 14 carries, they didn't have their starting left guard. Kansas City didn't. Joe Thuney, who's one of their best offensive linemen. It's a major step up. He'll play here. So I like that prop. And to the point of the running game for KC, I found this number. Since 2021, 3 of the 4 worst rushing defense performances from the Bengals in a category called rushing success rate. 3 of their 4 worst the last 2 years have come against the Chiefs. Somehow the Chiefs know how to run the football against this team. Every time they play them, they run it well. So I think Pacheco over 47.5 rushing yards, pretty good there. As far as game is concerned, listen, I'm more heavily involved in this game than I am the other game for a lot of reasons. I think this game is an over. I got 47.5. Hopefully the CLV trash can isn't out there, because 48 is a key number. 27-21, I'm still going to cash. But these two teams, the last 2 times they played, it's been 51. And it's been 27-24 this year, 27-24 last year's AFC Championship game. And it was an overtime game, so 48 in regulation. Still over the 47.5, but not quite over the 48 that we are seeing right now. It would be a push. I think Patrick Mahomes is good enough, Ski, and I kind of disagree with the general outlook that all KC is going to be able to do is dump off and hand off because his ankle is too bad to move. I probably have more faith in Andy Reid's play calling than anybody else, but they're sitting there with 3, and you mentioned one of them, Kadarius Toney, with 3 guys that run 4.3 40s that can stretch a field. And you don't have to throw it 60 yards downfield, but you have to be able to at least throw it 25 or 30 to these guys. If Cincinnati creeps up and feels the way that most of the nation does, I think Andy Reid's going to call some plays where Kadarius Toney, Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, Mecole Hardman might play here. Somebody's going to get behind the defense. He's going to push them back a little bit, just like we talked about in the earlier game. So for me, I'd be afraid to play Kadarius Toney under. He's that type of explosive player. And he didn't play the first game against these guys, so we got no history on what to figure from this guy against this particular team and how he might factor into the game plan. What they did do in the first game, Bengals defensively, was focus on Travis Kelce. They surrounded Kelce, and I think he only had, I got the numbers here, I think it was only 6 catches. Let me get it straight for you. Kelce only had 4 catches for 56 yards. Cincinnati made a point of trying to take him out of the game. If they do so again and Mahomes is forced to look elsewhere, that elsewhere could be Toney, Valdez-Scantling, any of those guys. I went through all their receiving totals to see if I could find one I like, but I'd be a little hesitant on playing those. I think it's probably why I like Pacheco to run for over, despite even including the fact that he's gone over 9 of last 10 games. And I've given you the full game over, Pacheco over. In the end, I think Cincinnati's team total is too low. You can't tell me that the Bengals and Joe Burrow can't get to 24 points against these guys. I just don't see it happening. They've done it twice in a row already. You talked about the soft Kansas City run defense, and I would say that I agree with you wholeheartedly that Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator for KC, is a blitz guy. Now, they haven't blitzed a ton this year, but when they're best, they're blitzing, and they'll blitz anybody. And if you blitz Joe Burrow, in some cases, you're signing your own death warrant, especially with those receivers, Chase and Higgins and Boyd and Hurst and so on. So I think Cincinnati finds their way to 24 like they have the 2 previous times against this team. I would play that over. I would play the full game over, and I would play Isaiah Pacheco rushing yards over. I'm invested in all 3 of those. So tail if you like, disagree if you like, but that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, I think as far as the over is concerned, I probably will shorten it up and just play the first half. I know Kansas City, really good first half scoring team, a little bit above 15 points per game. And just in case they give Mahomes that shot and it only lasts at 24 minutes or not 24 minutes,
Right.
It's not the NBA. The first half of the game, you know what I'm saying here.
Yep.
And then that second half, he's hobbling around and limping around. So I would probably want to take advantage of that first half and go over to 23.5. I can't help but think I think this Kansas City team, and I respect what you got to say, and I respect Ragu, and I respect everybody in the chat, but I'm seeing Ragu I'm reading through what he's saying. I know he has some confidence on this Bengals team. Cap to capper. And that's what I always say. You can read somebody's confidence level and you know what they're good at. But I don't know, man. He said that, Cincinnati's offensive line was more banged up last year and they still made it work, et cetera, et cetera. They were banged up last year too, but I feel like last year, nobody was really looking at this Bengals team. Now, and that last game they won, they were the team that's being disrespected. Now you got a Bengals team who's been running their mouth, telling everybody get their refunds. You got Eli Apple over here running his mouth like he's actually locking somebody down. It's a little bit of a different situation versus they already beaten Patrick Mahomes a couple times. They beaten this Chiefs team, knocked him out the playoffs, and the way that the line went to the Chiefs as an underdog, I feel like the Chiefs are now the disrespected team. And I think Mahomes is going to be good enough to play. I think, they're going to be able to run the ball on the Bengals as well. So I hate to go against Burrow because I really do like Burrow. And it cost me last week. It was my only loss throughout the whole weekend. But I'm liking Kansas City, probably first half more than the full game. I like the first half over to 23.5. And I like Kansas City to win the game too. I feel like everybody is going to bet the Bengals. And, to start the playoffs, I feel like it's pretty much the good teams are going to win, etc. That's why, for better words, I think like the first couple of weeks of the playoffs are public because those good teams are going to win. But now when it gets like this, I also just feel like it's money making time for the books, and everybody's betting Bengals hand over fist since the line opened. I just don't think it's going to be that easy to cash that ticket. Fernie disagrees with me. He says, "You know what to do with that ticket, that KC ticket, Ski." um, we'll see. We'll see what I got to do with it at the end of the day. But I like Kansas City in this one. Ragu says, "Rob speaks to my point about Burrow, Dyson of Spags." Yeah, see, I agree with. That's why I don't like hearing it from both of you guys because I like the other side. And I respect what you guys got to say.
But I'll say this, Ski. I love your point about Eli Apple running his mouth. As a guy who wants points in the game, I hope Kansas City goes right at Eli Apple because he's been toast since he came into the league. He's a first-round draft pick who's traveled around the league and hasn't been a good corner at all, but he's always the loudest guy on the field. So, I talked about the speed that Kansas City has at wide receiver. It's why I'm a little leery of Kadarius Toney staying under. And I talked about how Andy Reid will game plan and target things. And I'm with you. KC could win this game. There's no question. I don't sell them short scoring points wise in this game whatsoever. And if we just want to speak motivationally, last year in this game, Kansas City's first 3 possessions were all long touchdown drives. Boom, boom, boom. 21 points, 75 yards, 82 yards, 77 yards, or whatever it was. And then for some unexplainable reason, Patrick Mahomes decided second half to not do what worked in the first half. And he got criticized. He got criticized heavily. He remembers this ankle. It may be healing miraculously, or it may just be Mahomes' pride remembering what happened last year and why they didn't go to the Super Bowl because it fell on his shoulders. Whatever the case, I think he comes to play, Ski. I'm with you there. If Kansas City wins, I would not be surprised. If Cincinnati wins, I would not be surprised. I think both of these quarterbacks are too good to be held down. I think both of these offenses are too good to be held down. So hopefully I get the points that I need here in this game.
Yeah, we'll see. And I feel like, we've seen Mahomes banged up before. He's been a guy who, we're like, how the hell is he out there playing already? And not just this season that we've seen it. We've seen it in previous years. So we'll see how good he could look in the matchup this weekend. Looking at a couple more comments here. Fernie really likes those Bengals. That's his team, though. Fernie's now that the Bills are out, he likes the Bengals and the Bills, so he's gonna ride with the Bengals to the end.
Let me say to Fernie real quick and all the other folks watching here that the most underappreciated part of the Kansas City offense is that offensive line. We talked a bunch about the Eagles' offensive line, but Kansas City's offensive line is the reason why they click so much. And that unit is solid. Remember the year, Ski, it was a couple of years back, I think they made the Super Bowl, but their offensive linemen, they had multiple offensive linemen get hurt heading into the Super Bowl. And it was against the Rams. I'm forgetting now. Somebody remind me. But Mahomes wasn't the same in that game. Their offense wasn't the same in that game. This offensive line is special, just like the Eagles is. And there's nobody hurt on that unit. So they'll protect Patrick Mahomes. Believe me, they'll protect him.
Like their life depends on it this week. They're going to protect him. So I think we did a pretty thorough job covering both of these games, Rob. Now it's about that time where, if there's anything you would like to promote, feel free to do so. And also, if you like, one game or one play that we've talked about more than the others, feel free to share.
All right, let's go with the promotion real quick because it's the same every time I come on here with you, but let's promote wagertalk.com. That's where you can find all of my work aside from what I do here with Ski, and we love doing this a couple of times a week. Maybe we'll increase it as we go on here, depending upon schedules. But wagertalk.com, if you're not currently a member, just go ahead and drop your email address. It's totally free. The video content that's provided each and every day by all the handicappers over there, all the different shows that we have. And in fact, the shows are extending now to the weekend. I was actually on a pilot show last week where they're going to now have a Saturday morning, kind of a last minute look at the lines and line movements and whatnot. So that'll be real good too as well. So if you're interested in Saturday morning updates on plays, line moves, everything else, reasons why, wagertalk.com. If you like selection packages, I'm up and loaded over there. NBA, college basketball, NFL, wagertalk.com. Just visit my homepage. For play, Ski, best bet for the show, I'm going to go back to the KC Cincinnati game where I really think Isaiah Pacheco is being undervalued here at 47.5 rushing yards. Again, I love KC's offensive line. I love the fact that he ran for 66 yards on only 14 carries the first time around against this team. I love the fact that he's gone over. He's done 58 yards. He's hit 58 yards or better in 9 of his last 10. And I like the fact that he's a breakaway back. Whenever you bet these totals over, you hope that the back gets one big run because you know there's going to be a lot of times where he just plows into the line and gets 2 or 3. But if you get that one big one, generally you can get over a number like this. So give me Isaiah Pacheco over 47.5 rushing yards in the KC Cincinnati game.
I love that play. I think I'm going to join you on that and also play his rushing attempts over. For my best bet for the show, and I haven't placed it yet, but I'll place it right after. We'll look at the other guy on the other side who I think is important, Mixon, over his receiving yards. I think it's 24.5 right now. I also would look towards his longest reception prop. I didn't get to see where it is quite yet. And also, I mean, his rushing yards prop was close to 60. I mean, he just had a 100 rushing game last week. Kansas City is really soft versus these running backs. I think he's the guy to play on. So both of us looking at running backs and that Kansas City and Cincinnati game for our best bets. And just like Rob, you can find all of my work at wagertalk.com. If you're interested, I have a 5% basketball play up and available there. And we appreciate you guys for tuning in. Patrick Dill says, hell of a collab between Rob and Ski. Appreciate that. Big Ragu as well saying much respect to us too for our work. Much respect to you, Ragu. We appreciate you tuning in. Best of luck to you as well. And Young News, he says he's digging the show. Great work and giving us some props. So I appreciate you as well. So for Rob and for myself, like I've said it many times, we appreciate you guys watching the show, tuning in, sharing in the comments, and good luck on all of your action this weekend. Best of luck if you're telling anything we've said, and we'll catch you guys again next week.